Good evening, everyone. This is Anesia Baptiste, the political leader of the Democratic Republican Party of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the DRP. And this evening, I have decided to say a few words using this Facebook Live of reminding, few words of reminder about the Democratic Republican Party or the DRP's plans, which we had outlined to address the problem of crime, domestic and sexual violence in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Hi Marlon, hi Sonia, nice to see you. It's been a while. Thank you for joining. Hello Mark Song, very grateful to have you all here. And if you can, please share this video. Hello Helen. I know that lately there has been a number of reports of sexual abuse, sexual violent crimes against persons in this country, women in particular, and children, young children, minors, teenagers. This is something that indeed is not new in this country, and for many years we have had this sort of these type of occurrences. We're not alone, it is true, in the Caribbean. I just want to say something to you in reminder of some of the things that DRP said we would have done had we got an opportunity to be in government. Because we did present some of our plans in our 2015 manifesto. As you would know, grace and peace to you, Sister Melissa. Thanks for joining us from Antigua. As you would know, the DRP made its first political effort in 2015, our first election at only just 3 years old as a new party. We offered 6 candidates, but we did put together a short political manifesto of our plans. And in this manifesto, we addressed the issue of crime, domestic and sexual violence. It ran from about page 23. Okay, we talked about, I tried to show you the book, right? DRP's anti-crime, domestic and sexual violence plan. And we talked about several things, including what we would do to deal with sexual offenses. Now, I empathize with all the families who had young children who have been abused and attacked by individuals in a sexual way. I know that it cannot be easy and it cannot be good for any child, any woman, any boy, because that is happening too, believe it or not, to go through such violation. But there are things that we can do, there are practical things that we should be doing as a government, as a people. Grace and peace to you too, Sister Anesia. Thanks for watching. And you're a young person yourself, take note. There are things that we can do to help to mitigate in the situation, though we may not be able to stop every single occurrence because we are dealing with crime, and the issue of crime fundamentally is the individual choice of a person to do evil, coming from their own mind, as the scriptures show us. But I want to talk to you about what we have said some of our plans included. Again, if you are able to share this video, please do so others can hear what we have to say. Grace and peace to you, Sister Karima. Sister Karima was one of our candidates in 2015. She ran in the constituency of East Kingston. Now, before I speak about what we have in our manifesto, I want to remind you of my experience in dealing with this issue. As you know, in 2009, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the name Anesia Baptiste, I think, became most prominent than ever before on the political scenario, that is, because I was speaking out against certain provisions of the Constitution Bill 2009, which I believe were against the inalienable or God-given rights and freedoms of the people. In 2010, December, I was appointed a senator in the House of Assembly under the advice of the Honorable Anesia, then political leader and opposition leader, for the New Democratic Party. And in my senatorial duties in Parliament, I had to shadow the ministry dealing with family, gender affairs, children, the disabled, and even ecclesiastical affairs. So a lot of my pronouncements, my questions at question time, and so on, had to do with the issue of children, family, women, welfare, and so on. I also sat on select committees in the Parliament dealing with those issues, such as, for example, I sat on a select committee which addressed the Anti-Trafficking in Human Persons bill at the time, now a law of 2011. In fact, I was just reading over some of the contribution I made in the Hansard in that debate. Not only did I debate the Trafficking in Human Persons bill at the time, I also contributed 2 significant portions to that bill in select committee, which I took from the Antigua law after studying it, after receiving a copy from sister colleagues in Antigua. I recommended to the people of St. Louis and the Grenadines through the select committee of the House of Parliament that we should incorporate these 2 sections of Antigua's law into our law, and they were accepted by the Prime Minister, they were accepted by the Attorney General, and by the select committee. So that was our contribution as well, and it was very important because it had to do with making things like the trafficking of a pregnant person, trafficking of a disabled person, including it as an aggravated circumstance so that there could be heavier penalties if the person you trafficked was pregnant, if they were disabled, and so on. There was another section which I contributed to that had to do with including something like social, I can't remember the exact expression off my head, but it included the issue of the socio-economic circumstances of the individual as a grounds or a reason for which a person might be trafficking another person. Okay, so that made it possible for us to apply the crime of trafficking to not just the typical thing you think about in terms of causing people to cross the border for sexual purposes, but also trafficking could occur right here in St. Louis and Grenadines if you use the person's socioeconomic situation to engage them for money, basically. Say, okay, sex for money, I'm going to hold you, as it were, as a victim, as a slave in this arrangement, and I took advantage of your socioeconomic circumstances. That is in the law today because of me. Because while at select committee, I did my homework, I studied other laws in the region, and I saw that this was a very important aspect to put into our law, and I recommended it to select committee, and it was accepted. Thank you, Sonia, indeed, and thanks for all who have joined. The point is, here we have a situation where a lot of people are crying out against the crimes that are taking place against these children, these minors, and people often give their expression about what they think. Okay, well, for example, the man who was charged the other day and given, I believe it was 18 months, or 24 months in total, sorry. I believe it was 16 months and 8 months, yes. People are saying, oh, it's too little bit, it's crazy. I mean, this is a 5-year-old, he will just go to prison for 2 years and that's it. And yes, some people may not understand the ramifications, you know, the fact that, okay, he pleaded guilty, he didn't get the full extent, and so on. However, I do agree generally that some of these laws, we can do better. But you see, the issue is, my dear people, we would have to have law reform. And this is why I want to talk about what the DRP had proposed. Because you see, we recognize that in a number of cases, our situation is of such a nature that we have to go with what is there. But what is really needed is a proper law reform unit in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we can look at not only our sexual offences laws, but look at various laws that we have that need reforming for the purposes of, for example, increasing penalties in some cases, for the purposes of, for example, removing certain things that may be really too harsh or anything like that. In other words, we need a general review of our laws so that we can improve our situation in different ways, including addressing in a more effective way the vexing problem of sexual crimes against women, against children, against people generally. Because like I said, and I said this before in, I think it was 2000, 15 or 16. Boys are also being sexually abused in this country. Yes, boys are being buggered. Boys are being encouraged into certain relationships for money, for latest shoes, and all kinds of things. And we cannot overlook the fact that this problem is pervasive, is becoming pervasive, and is affecting our boy children as well. Now, I want to tell you what we said we would have done. In our manifesto, again, Democratic Republican Party Political Manifesto 2015, DRP, the party with a heart, bringing new hope from service to all the people, not just some. We talked generally about how we identify the roots or the causes of crime and what are some of the things we think can be done to help the situation. We talked, for example, about a family council plan because we recognize that at the heart of dealing with the problem of crime is restoring broken homes. Yes, a family council plan, FCP, we called it. We talked about restoring broken homes, and we explained that what we would do is we would target and strengthen family life values teachings in schools. At least half-hour sessions per week in every school around the country. I'm talking about plans here. At least half-hour sessions in schools per week around the country in areas such as human rights lessons, for example, against crimes like domestic violence, rape, pedophilia, incest, theft. Teaching the children about these crimes, what they are, how you can identify somebody is doing that to you, what are the penalties, teaching them what to do, who they can talk to, where they should go, etc. This kind of education is very important, and in our manifesto, we said that we would do that. Human rights lessons against crimes in schools every week. We also talked about ethics training, like teaching manners and respect, assisting the elderly, good relations with family. Children spend most of their time at school. They go to school for 8, 9 o'clock and they're back after 3, after 4 in the afternoon. Most of the hours of the waking part of the day is at school. They get this education in school. It helps with their family life and their situations at home. We talked also about health education against teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV and AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. We said we would also partner, the DRP will also partner with local media to air regular programs with the same messages into the homes. So not only would we go into the schools, but we will go into the homes using the television, using the radio, and let the people see and hear, even the children, because children watch TV. I remember when I had my television program regular, I had parents telling me their 4-year-olds would sit down and watch me, would repeat after me and all these things. They're very captivated. And we would have these educational programs going into the homes on a regular basis. It can teach them certain principles as well that they can use when they go to school, that they can use to help themselves, to tell their friends, and so on. So we said we would partner with local media to air regular programs on crime, against crime, on ethics, on behavior, on health education, and so on, into the homes. We also said we would partner with community groups using theatrical and other traditional presentations to bring the same messages into communities. So you have these community groups doing drama, okay? We can partner with them for them to use their skits and their dramatic theatrical presentations to send similar messages, support them, give them fora, give them opportunity to send their messages throughout the community. It could be community evening activity, you know, so instead of just being home, you have at a community center in communities, you have skits being presented, and they're dealing with different themes. They're dealing with crime, they're dealing with rape, they're dealing with this, and they're demonstrating certain things, and they're teaching certain lessons, where to go, who to call, etc., etc. These things we said we would do because we understand that this is how you get educational information across to people. You use the media, you use community groups, you use active organizations, and you get the messages into the communities, into the homes directly, into the schools, which is then taken into the homes by the children. We also talked about juvenile delinquency plan. Okay, and I don't want to go too much into that aspect right now because I really want to zoom in on the sexual crimes, so I'll go there. But we talked about a juvenile delinquency plan. We called it JDP in our manifesto. We also talked about crime solving. Yes, crime solving by strengthening our intelligence gathering and police visibility on the beat, and forensics in order to address specific problems such as gun violence and illegal drug trafficking. We talked also about strengthening our law on the death penalty to ensure its enforcement. Because yes, the Democratic Republican Party, of which I am the head, we believe in the enforcement of the death penalty. We believe that the death penalty is just punishment for the crime of murder when proven after due process, and we believe that it should be implemented as a form of deterrent against murder. You cannot tell me that you want to fight crime, you want to fight murder and fight the problems associated therewith, and you don't want to implement the death penalty. I do not think that people should vote for politicians who fight against the death penalty, because God gave the death penalty in the book of Genesis in the beginning, early in human civilization after the flood. He said that whosoever sheddeth man's blood, by his blood shall, by man shall his blood be shed. Because in the image of God created he man. It is very important. God is the one who stipulates that the death by the state, okay, by man shall his blood be shed. Death by the state is just equitable punishment for the proven crime of murder. People want to come and bring all kind of false sympathy for the murderer, even more than for the victim. And this doesn't help our society, because when people feel that they could murder and get away with it and just go into the prisons and sit down and eat and get fat and eat people's taxpayers' money that's keeping them there in the prison, their hearts are hardened, thinking that they could get away with it. Some might even say, well, I'll just do it and go around there and sit down. These things cannot be allowed to continue. We have to find a way, despite the evil influence of the Privy Council, who some time ago said what Company did was not the worst of the worst, okay, and basically said it should be reduced to life. We have to find a way to get around that, and there are ways to do it. There is a way to do it. But you have to have the political will of those in government to get it done. We cannot afford to continue to have all these murders taking place, and we are not able to implement the death penalty when the person is found guilty of murder. And so the DRP said that we would look at ways in which we could strengthen our law on the death penalty to ensure its enforcement. That's one of the things we said. But to come quickly to the issue of domestic and sexual violence, in light of recent reports, and mind you, I'm not saying that these things have not been going on. I would be foolish and unrealistic to say that. The fact is, a lot of things we're hearing about now, but they've been going on for a while. And if you think about it, you would realize that years gone by, we had rapes of elderly, we had rape of baby, we had rapes of disabled. If you think about it, you can find that years gone by, we had reports like that, and we're seeing it again, right? So it is something that has been going on. It's not, sometimes it shocks our senses because of how it comes home to us and what appears to be the increase in reporting, which is a good thing, though it's a bad thing, because you don't want to hear this is happening, but it's good that it's being reported, because the increase in what appears to be the increase in reporting, we are sometimes shocked. We figure, well, oh boy, it's so much. But the reality is we have had this problem for a while, and there are things that we are to look at doing. So what did the DRP say we would do to get to the point? I just want to read portions of our manifesto to you. On page 25, we said, and I quote, the DRP recognizes that domestic and sexual violence is a problem in our country, which seriously affects the family and our most vulnerable, including women, minors, so boys and girls, the disabled, and the elderly. We are dedicated to addressing it from the root, thoroughly and smartly, motivated by our duty to protect the God-given rights and freedoms of our people. So what motivates us at the DRP is the fact that we understand the government's role is to protect the inalienable or God-given rights and freedoms of all the people. And as a result, every policy, every idea, every law must all be geared to and must show that preoccupation, that focus on protecting God-given rights and freedoms of all. Rape, incest, assault and battery and domestic violence, and teenage pregnancy are among areas we will focus on addressing. A DRP government's role in fighting against these violent crimes is to educate, listen to the things we said our role includes, educate, legislate, implement, and prosecute effectively for deterrence. I want to repeat that. A DRP government's role in fighting against these violent crimes is to educate, legislate, implement, and prosecute effectively for deterrence. We will therefore look at 4 areas. Thank you, Sonia. Sonia says, I hope and pray more people tune in and listen to you and take all the information you are giving to them. Keep up the good work, my friend. Thank you so much, Sonia from New York. We are very grateful. And we thank for all your support over the years, the ways in which you assisted me in getting information out to the public. That was so important because that equipment that you've helped us to get to show information to the intentions through the television has helped many, many persons. Has helped with housing for persons, has helped with sending children back to school. And we want you to know that we appreciate your efforts as a faithful, patriotic intention in the diaspora. God bless you and family, Sonia. So this is what the DRP said we would do. We would look at 4 areas. What are the 4 areas? 1, legislative reform. And we put in brackets, including implementation. Because you know, the issue is always, you have the law, but it's not being enforced. You have the law, but it's not being implemented. So we recognize that we need legislative reform, but we need a special emphasis on ensuring that the law is enforced, that it's implemented. Point number 2, judicial reform, and we put in brackets special court, and I'll explain that a little more. Judicial reform. Thirdly, public awareness or education for transformation of values and behavior. Because when you're dealing with crime, including sexual violent crimes, you want to also address it from a preventative standpoint. And what is going to help that in some cases, because like I said, we can't guarantee that we could stop every single criminal. It's people's own mind that make them do evil. The carnal mind, the Bible calls it. But while we can't guarantee that, we can indeed seek to educate persons to help to transform their values and hopefully their behaviors and perhaps reduce the amount of crimes. Point number 4, institutional creation and strengthening, including police services. So let me talk about those things a bit more in detail and tell you what we said we would do and how it relates to what we are seeing now. Under that section, we have another section before we go into the issue of the different reforms. We have a section, a brief section called Increasing Age of Sexual Consent. Let me try to zoom in on that. Do you see it there? Let me see it. Increasing age of sexual consent. And we have the DRP will raise the legal age of sexual consent to 17 and a half or 18. You see, I have to emphasize this because these days I hear a lot of people talking about that. But do you know that it was the Democratic Republican Party, the smallest party, the youngest party, with the fewest candidates in the last election, who gave a commitment in manifesto that if we were to get into government, we would work to increase the age of sexual consent, bring it from 15 to at least 17 and a half, which is not far from 18 or 18. We were the only political party that was brave enough to say so in our manifesto. All the others who might talk, the truth is they didn't give such a commitment in their manifesto to the people. So you see, we are serious about it because there are lots of inconsistencies and problems that result from this issue of the fact that for the purposes of the age of majority act, an adult is 18, but yet we are saying that a 15-year-old could give consent to sex. So basically you're saying a child could give consent to sex because at 15, she or he is not yet an adult. So something needs to be done to regularize these things, and it has serious implications for things like sexual relationships with adults, because then it means that you're saying an adult can have a sexual relationship with a child, essentially. You understand? And that has serious implications for things like encouraging pedophilia, quite frankly. It has other implications that we can't go into right now, but I just wanted to say, I see somebody saying it wasn't clear. I'll try again. I just wanted to make it clear. If I could bring it in. Right, I have to, right. And you see there, we said in the DRP, you can't see everything, that we would increase the age of sexual consent to 17.5 or 18. This is what we have in our manifesto to the people. This was our promise, this was our commitment, and we wrote it down. We were not afraid. So let's talk about the 4 areas of reform that I mentioned. Yes, Sonia, I certainly will. I appreciate that very much. God bless you. Right? That we mentioned. When we say establish a law reform unit, the intentions, I'm sure, whether you're police, prosecutor, whether you're just a man on the street, our laws need reform. I had the opportunity by God's grace to study law. It's not my first degree. I am an Island Scholar from 1998, and I have studied Bachelor of Arts in French and Linguistics in the University of West Indies, Trinidad. I had studied a double master degree in Hotel and Tourism Management in France, in the south of France. And I did another degree, a Bachelor of Laws with the University of London online distance program, because I saw the need to understand a bit more about the law. I didn't do the bar, so I cannot practice before the courts, but I have a law degree. And one of the things I quickly realized while doing this program is that we need law reform in Finland and Greenland. We have a lot of laws that need changing, simply put, that need reforming to make them work more effectively for the benefit of Vincentians. And this is one of the things that the DRP committed to do. Set up a law reform unit. And what would this unit be responsible for? And what would it be about? We say here, and I quote on page 26 of our manifesto, a properly staffed and resourced unit dedicated to updating and modernization of our laws. Did you hear that? Update the laws, modernize them as applicable to our needs. That's what the DRP said we would do. Create a law reform unit, a properly staffed and resourced unit dedicated to updating and modernization of our laws as applicable to our needs, as well as recommending legal reform in a quick time for implementation. Goodness gracious, there are times we pass bills in Parliament. You pass a bill and sometimes 5 years, long, no implementation, because certain regulations still need to be done and you don't know what's going on at the legal affairs department, why they haven't been able to bring the regulations as yet. Sometimes it takes so long. Look at the Freedom of Information Act. Who could write no and ask for information on the Freedom of Information Act? Not a soul. Because whatever regulations have not yet been put into effect, so we could use it. Yet it's been over 10 years, thereabout. It's unacceptable. So we need a properly functioning law reform unit, not only to look at the laws that are currently there in terms of updating them, modernizing them, and so on, but also to even recommend reforms based on, you know, how things are, the way the society is going, what we think needs. Because many of these laws are old and they were there. Nothing is wrong with an old law, don't get me wrong, but they were there for a while and we need to make them applicable to our situations. That's why you have people crying out against the fact that a man will get what? 24 months for, what do things say? It sounds so nasty. Making a little 5-year-old suck his penis and these kind of nasty things. People will cry out against that because naturally it brings forth that cry, because this is a baby, this is a 5-year-old, but you see, you can't blame the magistrate or so, because they will deal with it based on what the current law says. What is the maximum he could get? What are these circumstances? Did he plead guilty? If he pleaded guilty, normally you don't give them the maximum. But to us on the ground, it seems unfair. To us on the ground, we think that's not enough time, and that's understandable based on how you feel. But the point is, the only way to deal with the situation is to look at these laws and see where we need to change some of them in terms of increasing the penalties for certain kinds of crimes that are naturally vexatious to the mind of society. Truly crimes against the state and the people. But let me tell you, we said we would have done that. Let me show you. On page 27, right, you see that section there. Enact and reform sexual offences legislation. Do you see it? Yes, Carl Baptiste, another one of our candidates in last election. Very good information and explanation of the issues facing us as a nation. Also, excellent policy from the DRP. Keep up the good work, my dear. Thank you for your support, my dear husband. Here we said we would say, enact and reform sexual offences legislation. Enact where necessary, where we think our legislation is missing certain things, and reform what we already have there. And what did we say we would do under that? Listen carefully. 3 points. 1, provide stiffer penalties. You hear that? Listen good, eh? Provide stiffer penalties for rape against minors, the disabled, and the elderly. You see, this came out of conversation we had with professionals and the reality that we were seeing. When you rape an elderly, when you rape a disabled, when you rape a minor, that is naturally an aggravated circumstance. It's bad enough to rape an adult, whether male or female, because under the law, that's how you could really define rape. If you quote unquote rape a man, it's because you bugger him. And that's why the bug law must stay there, by the way. And the DRP supports leaving it there. No LGBT agenda policy will be supported by this DRP. But it's bad enough to rape a woman. It's worse still, if I should put it that way, to rape a minor. A child is a weak person. They cannot put up a fight. They are totally taken advantage of. To rape a disabled, somebody in a wheelchair, somebody who could barely talk, somebody who could barely understand. Oh gosh, that is craziness. To rape an elderly, that is total unnatural affection. An elderly is somebody who more than likely would have brought you into this world, live and work hard all their life, and they just home relaxing, waiting out their final years, and if somebody will go and target them for rape. So you see, when you think of these kinds of rape, you see how aggravated the situation is, and we said in our manifesto, we would provide stiffer penalties for such kinds of rape. Stiffer penalties. That way, in like the situation that happened recently where people are so naturally understandably vexed over the fact that the guy only got 24 months for 5-year-old little baby girl. That way, in a situation like that, this could have come under, that would have come under what we said here, where we could reform that law to have a more reasonable kind of penalty to ensure that that guy or any person who will dare to do that, if they do it, could get what would be considered to be a more just and equitable punishment for the nature of the crime. You understand what I'm saying to you, my dear people? And hopefully, by realizing that the penalties are stiffer, it could act as a more effective deterrent against persons wanting to do that crime. Because when they realize the penalties are stiffer, and don't come tell me, some people have some weird philosophy, you know. They want to be in government, they want to run government. You're in opposition, you want to run government, but you're telling me penalty doesn't affect crime. That is not true. And by the way, how do you know that? You and every single person's mind to know that they were not deterred by the nature of a penalty. I bet you could tell you to hang people in Simmons and the Grenadines, you would have seen people deterred from hanging, from murder, sorry. So this kind of nonsense reasoning to make us not address the issue of appropriate penalties. It doesn't help society. And Vincent, you need to listen to what politicians are saying and determine who you're going to put there and not based on the things they say, because some of them just go off on certain philosophies and they're not looking at what's happening in society and how it's affecting you and me. We can be more concerned about the murderer and the perpetrator more than we are concerned about the victim. Come on. Yes, the perpetrator has a right to due process and justice and everything. We're not against that. But we're saying once it is proven, the penalty must meet the crime. Quid pro quo. So much for so much. The Bible itself upholds that principle when it talks about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We don't use that now literally because it's not a theocracy where all the people agreed to serve Yahweh and Yahweh gave his rules, Yahweh God, and once they broke it, they had to face the penalty. But the principle remains the same. That penalty must be quid pro quo. So much for so much. 24 months for sexual assault on a 5-year-old doesn't look to people as quid pro quo. It doesn't look as so much for so much. It looked too little bit. But you see, that's the law. So what the DRP said we would do is we would reform the law and provide stiffer penalties for rape against minors, disabled, and the elderly. And remember, I told you already that in 2011, when I sat in Parliament, I caused the Parliament to put into the anti-human trafficking law in St. and the Grenadines 2 sections that I got from the Antigua law and recommended to them in Select Committee, which includes ensuring that the penalty for trafficking more vulnerable persons like the disabled and the elderly and so on would be stiffer. So it can be done, because when I made the recommendation, give the government its due, they accepted it. And that, by the way, was the case in the Antigua legislation. So I was just really borrowing from what a sister island had done, recognizing that it was a good provision. What else did the DRP say we would do in terms of reforming sexual offences legislation? Listen to this carefully. Mandatory reporting of sexual abuse against minors by parents and guardians and stiff penalties for failure to do so. I read that again. Mandatory reporting of sexual abuse against minors by parents and guardians and stiff penalties for failure to do so. Earlier, Sonia asked what she could do to help. One of the things I would love to be able to do is to be able to bring more of this education on national television. It is challenging these days to get financial support. Everybody's crying out. So if you are willing and able to sponsor some of our television programs, feel free to message me and let me know how, and let's go from there. But we need this. Why say this? Now, when we wrote this into our manifesto in 2015, a Domestic Violence Act was being updated. The Domestic Violence Act of 2015, it's now law. And in that, there are some portions where they talk about mandatory reporting of suspected domestic violence against children. But one of the things I was disappointed in, and I will read the section to you, is that it did not specifically bind parents. Did not specifically bind parents, but and other things that I will explain. So in our Domestic Violence Act of 2015, under section 35(1), it falls under a section called miscellaneous. It says, and I quote, a dentist, medical practitioner, nurse, psychologist, social worker, or a teacher, did you hear that? I didn't hear mother, I didn't hear guardian, I didn't hear parent. But this is what the Domestic Violence Act says. A dentist, medical practitioner, nurse, psychologist, social worker, or teacher who examines, attends to, or deals with any child in circumstances giving rise to reasonable suspicion that the child has been subject to any act of domestic violence as a result of which the child suffers from injury, whether single or multiple, shall immediately notify a police officer of the said circumstances. In this section, we are seeing that the law, section 35, subsection 1 of the Domestic Violence Act of 2015 makes it obligatory that certain professionals, if they have reasonable suspicion that a child has been subjected to any act of domestic violence and they've suffered from injuries as a result of it, they must immediately notify a police officer. It doesn't stay there. It also goes on in section 37 to show that there is a penalty if you do not report the domestic violence. But first, before I go to the penalty, understand that the expression any act of domestic violence also includes sexual abuse. Because in the interpretation section of the Act, it plainly states that domestic violence is described as, it describes domestic violence, it defines it, and part of the definition includes, and I quote, sexual abuse or threats of sexual abuse. In other words, if a dentist, a medical practitioner, a nurse, a psychologist, a social worker, a teacher examines or attends to or deals with any child, I'm quoting the law, and they have reasonable suspicion, a child comes to school and the teacher reasonably suspects that the child has been subjected to any act of domestic violence, including sexual abuse or threats of sexual abuse, they have a duty under the Domestic Violence Act to notify a police officer of the circumstances. It goes on to show in section 37, I quote, a person who contravenes any prohibition, including this prohibition in section 35, a person who contravenes any prohibition, condition, obligation, that's what it really is. Section 35 is an obligation. You have an obligation to report to the police if you reasonably suspect sexual violence, sexual abuse, domestic violence against a child, against a minor. A person who contravenes any prohibition, condition, obligation, or order imposed under this Act and for which a penalty is not stipulated commits an offence and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $10,000 or to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or to both such fine and imprisonment. End of quote. Did you all know that? Did you know that under the Domestic Violence Act, if a teacher, a social worker, a psychologist, a nurse, a medical practitioner, or a dentist reasonably suspects that a child has been subjected to sexual abuse, which is a form of domestic violence, and they do not notify the police officer, which means that they contravene the obligation to notify a police officer, that they're committing an offense, and that they could be liable on summary conviction to a fine of up to $10,000, no more than $10,000, or to a term of imprisonment of up to 5 years, or to both the fine and the imprisonment. Did you know that, intentions? That is the case. But how many? The other day we had a matter reported where a father said it was brought to his attention by his daughter that a teacher was alleged to have touched another child in school inappropriately. And the child saw it and went over and told her father, and the father raised alarm about it. And there was noise about, oh, let the ministry deal with it, or wait a while, or why you want to go to the paper, and all this kind of thing. But the law says that the teachers have a duty to report. The law says that these professionals have a duty to report, mandatory reporting, and that there is penalty if they don't. Let me tell you something. I personally believe it is time for some of these people, including parents and guardians, including aunties and uncles and persons who condone a lot of the evils taking place against our children in society, to be made examples of. But our law could be even stronger in that regard, because I want to refer to Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act and tell you what they say, right? So we have said in the DRP Manifesto, we have said there must be mandatory reporting of sexual abuse against minors by parents and guardians, because like I told you, in the law I just read, there is no reference to parents and guardians, and you and I both know that sometimes it's the very guardians, they are aware the stepfather doing this, the uncle doing this, the so-and-so doing this, they've taken money for it, and they don't say anything. The law should mandate them to report on what it is proven that they knew and they didn't report. They must be penalized because they are condoning the very violence against the children. But the law must reflect that. The law must reflect that not only the teachers and the professionals must be mandated to report and penalized if they don't report or if they break that obligation, but the law must reflect that parents and guardians too must be mandated to report, and they must also face penalty if they don't report. We also said that there must be stiff penalties for obstruction with the minors reporting. Let me give you an example. You see, when I did this, when we worked on the DRP Manifesto, not only did we take into consideration what was happening in the country, not only did we take into consideration what professionals we met with, I sat down with former police officers and so on. Not only did we take into consideration what professionals said, but we also took into consideration what other countries' laws were saying. And I want to at least refer to Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act. Now, this act had different times when it was reformed, like amended. And I'm referring to the one with amendments up to the year 2012. Okay, Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act. And whereas our Domestic Violence Act does not include parent and guardian as having the duty to report, this act here in Trinidad and Tobago, the Sexual Offences Act, Section 31, has that obligation on parents and guardians as well. And it also talks about those who seek to interfere with the minors reporting. Like, you know, you threaten the child, and say, if you talk, so and so will happen. Or you offer them money, you know, to make them stay quiet. Yes, Tanya, I agree with you. You understand? If they are found guilty of harboring the behavior, they need to be dealt with. And if they are found guilty of threatening children not to talk, and that's why the education, that's why DRP said we would educate. Because you see, in situations where these little children are hearing what is the law and what they could do, even though they may be faced with the situation in their homes where parents and guardians are stopping them, you'd be amazed to see how these children could be brave and find somebody and tell them. I, for one, know that I would make my face and my example one that they could trust by coming to them over the airwaves and into their communities. Children will reach out to you. Children are very candid, shy, yes, at times, but they will talk eventually. So let me tell you what Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act says. Section 31. The section is titled Mandatory Reporting of Suspected Abuse of Minors. Mandatory Reporting of Suspected Abuse of Minors. It's Section 31 of the 2000 Act. It's Section 12 of the 2012 Act. It says, and I quote, any person who, A, is the parent or guardian of a minor. Did you hear that? The parent or guardian of a minor. B, has the actual custody, charge, or control of a minor. So you're just a grandmother, you know, or you're an adopted parent or whoever. You have custody, you have charge. Okay. C, has the temporary custody, care, charge, or control of a minor for a special purpose as his attendant, employer, or teacher, or in any other capacity. Or D, is a medical practitioner or a registered nurse or midwife and has performed a medical examination in respect of a minor. So any of those persons, including parents and guardians, and who has reasonable grounds for believing that a sexual offense has been committed in respect of that minor under this Act or Section 9, 10, 18, or 19 of the Children Act, shall report the grounds for his belief to a police officer as soon as reasonably practicable. Did you hear that? So again, the duty to report it to the police. And the duty is not only for teacher and psychologists and medical practitioners, but also for parents and guardians. This is the Trinidad Offences Act. Now, mind you, if there is any other law in Trinidad that mandates parents and that I didn't mention it, feel free to include it, feel free to let me know. But I was referring to the Domestic Violence Act because I couldn't understand why it failed to include parents and guardian as well. The Trinidad Act goes on. A person who without reasonable excuse fails to comply with the requirements of subsection 1 is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $15,000 or to imprisonment or for a term of 7 years, so their years are higher than ours says 5 years. They say a term of 7 years or to both such fine and imprisonment. Our law, Domestic Violence Act says no more than 10,000, and they say 15,000, which is 15,000 CT, so you know that's less than that in EC. The point is though that parents and guardians are also obligated to report under the Trinidad and Tobago Sexual Offences Act. It also even goes on to give a kind of protection. It says in section 3, no report made to a police officer under the provisions of subsection 1 shall, if such report was made in good faith for the purpose of complying with those provisions, subject the person who made the report to any action, liability, claim, or demand whatsoever. So those who might be afraid to report, you're being comforted, as it were, that your report will not be used against you. In other words, once made in good faith for the purpose of complying with the provision. I find we need strong law like this. Also, we said in the DRP's manifesto we would have stiff penalties for obstruction with the minors reporting. Because you see, this is what happens. Somebody children won't talk because mommy say she go do me so and so. Uncle don't threaten to do me so and so. So they won't talk. But you know, Trinidad law says that if you interfere and prevent the minor from reporting, that is an offense. And we put in our manifesto that we would bring stiff penalties for obstruction with the minors reporting. That is needed. Give the children and them power in their hands. Because if their own parents and guardians are not protecting them, teach them from young to protect themselves. And these are the things we said in our manifesto. Show me this in any other political party manifesto in the last general election of 2015. We may have been small, 6 people, yes, it's true. You say we couldn't form government. You say, well, you never know. Maybe there could be a coalition. But we had the ideas and the plans that would work. And we believe in these things. Let me tell you what the Trinidad law says about preventing minors from reporting. It says, and this is section 31A, it's called obstructing prosecution. Again, I'm not aware if we have such a provision in our laws. I see Brenton Smith has joined us sometime there. I don't know if he can contribute to the discussion and say if we have anything like this. But when I saw this, I thought we need something like this in our law. And this is what Trinidad says. Where a person prevents, you hear me? Where a person prevents a minor from A, giving a statement to the police, or B, testifying in proceedings relating to a sexual offense under this act or part 6 of the Children Act, he commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $20,000 and to imprisonment for a term of 10 years. Did you hear that? Trinidad Sexual Offences Act is saying, if you interfere with the child talking about what you did to them, if you interfere with them testifying or reporting to the police, you can go to jail. You can go to jail for 10 years. You can pay a fine of 20,000 TT dollars, which would be about 10,000. These are the things we need. They're getting away threatening the poor little children, 13-year-old and all kind of thing, making baby down in hospital and people in jail for that. And you telling me parents and guardians don't know about that? And we have them sitting down home still, say their parents. Something better has to be done. So I know we cry and we sigh and we lament, but these are some of the practical solutions we offered in the DRP. And these are things we would actually do. It won't be no just talk. Because we have the power. When government is in government, you have legislative power, you have policy power. Do something. What else did we say? What else? On the stiff penalties for obstruction with minors reporting, I also want to mention another aspect of the Trinidad law. It talks about making sure that the minor statement is admissible in court. Okay? It's a bit long to go into, but basically speaking, it says that without prejudice to any other written law, where the court is satisfied that a minor is being prevented from giving evidence, and where a statement is made in any written form or manner by a minor, or written in any form or manner by another person on behalf of the minor, and upon the dictation of the minor, that statement may be admissible in a trial as evidence of any fact of which direct oral evidence of the minor would be admissible. In other words, they were willing to accept written reports from the minor or from somebody on behalf of the minor. Now, mind you, we are not saying that accused perpetrators must not have their fair day in court. We are not saying that it is not true that you have times when victims who call themselves victims have lied on people. We are not saying that every single claim is automatically true and that there must be no fair and due process for alleged perpetrators. Don't get me wrong, we're not saying that, but we're saying we need also to strengthen and reform our laws to ensure that there is due protection for genuine victims, like minors as well, according to what we have explained. What else did we say we would do? Look at this. See there? Special court. Special court. What is this talking about? What did we say we would do under special court? Remember, we just looked at what we said we would enact and reform sexual offences legislation. Under it, the DRP said, good evening, Candice. The DRP said we would provide stiffer penalties for rape against minors, the disabled, and the elderly to address what you're seeing now, because we realize that the current law does not allow us to give what we consider to be more just penalty for some of these crimes that shock our senses. So we need to provide stiffer penalties by reforming the law. We said the law must have mandatory reporting of sexual abuse against minors by parents and guardians as well. Not only by teachers and other professionals like doctors and so on, but by parents and guardians as well. And there must be stiff penalty for failure to report the abuse against the minor by any of these people, including parents and guardians. We also said there must be stiff penalties for obstruction with the minors reporting, and I just read to you from Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act, where there's such a provision. I discussed these things on radio in years gone by before, you know, in radio programs. Sometimes people want to call a radio program and stick me on things like who rape and who alleged rape and all that, and I try to get to the issues. Because people fail to realize that sometimes you're so caught up with trying to bring on a political opponent over an allegation that you overlook the real issues affecting the people. Because I can assure you, when a mother's child gets sexually abused, she's not necessarily thinking of some past gone by allegation against a prime minister. She's thinking about a child. And be careful what kind of conclusions you draw generally. Because if any of your ministers or your candidates in your party were accused of certain things, would that mean that they are responsible for every crime of that nature that takes place henceforth? Sometimes people are so extreme and overlook the real issues affecting the children, affecting the people. All right, so what do we mean when we said we will have a special court? Because remember I said legislative reform, judicial reform, public awareness and education, and we also talked about institutional strengthening and capacity building in terms of police services. So we know under judicial reform, special court. What do I mean? Look, I have 4 points here. A special court to address sexual offenses. And I say in brackets, see Spain's domestic violence law, because I was looking at it and I found that they had very good provision. You see what happens here in St. and the Grenades? But you have all these backlog of cases. We have sexual offenses, my God, that go on for years. I know a particular mother, her child was raped in my room. And it's years. You can't get resolution, and these are little children and they have to live with this issue for years. And the perpetrators are on the streets. These things can't be right. We need to focus, zoom in, have a special court to address them so we can have effective addressing of these issues, effective resolution of the matter, to improve on the resolution rate of these cases. Why is this so important? If you all remember well, okay, it was Anesia Baptiste, Senator Baptiste at the time, who in 2012 broke the news in this country about the statistics, the damning statistics against women and Ghanaians when it came to rape. I think over the years this has been presented as if it was otherwise, but those are the facts. Here's what happened. Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar of Trinidad and Tobago held a women's colloquium in the region in Trinidad. She invited women parliamentarians from different islands in the region. She had just won the prime ministership, and this was one of the first things she did. I was invited to attend, and I attended representing the New Democratic Party in St. Vincent. When I attended this meeting, look, I have the PowerPoint presentation here. If I could switch my screen and show you, I was in the audience when one Yasmin Odlum of the Inter-American Commission of Women made a presentation to that meeting called Gender, Citizen Security and the Anglophone Caribbean 2000-2011. And in that presentation, Ms. Odlum presented statistics showing that in the OECS, sex crimes versus women, the period 2000-2011, the stats show that St. Vincent and the Grenadines had the highest number of rapes in the whole OECS for that 10-year period. 802. The slide is in front of me. I came home from Trinidad with those facts. And true to my work as a public servant, though as a senator this time, I wrote a report and submitted it to my boss, the then Anne Eustace. And in that report, and in my presentation on radio, okay, Senators Friday, they used to call it, I presented these statistics. The Friday, Senators Friday, I presented it, and by Monday, Honorable Anne Eustace went on radio on his usual Monday program, and he referred to the same statistics. Ms. Odlum sent me this PowerPoint presentation, and that is how we were able to use information to show the dire situation. But what was also very important in that presentation from Yasmin, and also in what she showed, was not just the amount of rapes we had, which was the highest over that 10-year period in the OECS, but the fact that our conviction rate was so low. You must have missed that. The conviction rate was very low, and that is never good. So, in considering that education, I put in our manifesto, we must improve on the resolution rate of the cases. And one of the ways we can do that is to focus. We need a special court to deal with sexual offenses. We also said here to aid in healing of victims by justice and to send a zero tolerance message to the would-be perpetrators. Because when you have resolution of matters, when you have matters being resolved more quickly than not, instead of taking long, you send a better message, you send a more deterrent message to persons who might be tempted to do those things. I want to quote a scripture here. Wise men lived before us. They were kings of thousands and tens of thousands. They had to pass law. Though not exactly in the context, because they had laws, they ruled over people. And one such wise man was Solomon. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, in the King James Version of the Bible, I am not ashamed to quote it as a politician. I know, I have to learn from people who went before me. In Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse 11, this is what the wise man Solomon said, and I quote, "Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil." Did you hear that? Let me quote it again. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse 11. King Solomon said, "Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily." In other words, when you have long periods for matters to be resolved and to be sentencing and for penalty to be given where evil work has been done, when it takes long for that to happen, what is the effect? Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart or the mind of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. In other words, the deterrent effect that speedily effective resolution and sentencing against evil work is supposed to have, you lose that effect. In fact, the opposite happens. People get more evil. People do more wickedness because they feel they could get away with it. This is knowledge. This is truth that has been known for years and years, even by former leaders of countries like King Solomon. And so, when we talk about having a special court and sending that zero tolerance message, we're hoping to improve the resolution of cases, improve the convictions and so on. Of course, with due process and fairness for even the perpetrator to have his say and his day in court. And this is what is necessary. This is what we propose. In 2016, I believe it was January, I participated in I think it was a rally against crime or something down in Clear Valley. I was invited by K. Baptiste and what's her name there, Nicole Sylvester at the time, who is now deceased. And I spoke at that meeting and I reported some of these provisions that we had recommended in the DRP. I had the unfortunate experience of having an aunt of mine who was disabled basically approached for sex in her home in Vermont and forced, when she didn't want to give it, a disabled woman, and killed, burnt in fire in a house. And her partner, who himself had his issues, was burnt too, but he lived. And I was coming from that funeral and had to speak at that meeting, and I spoke of these things. So I understand. But I'm saying practically, these are some things we need to do. So if a government is not serious about addressing this situation, if they're not serious about looking at the fact that, look, we can't get proper justice in this place, the system working too slow, there's too many problems, there's not enough officials, not enough resources to do what we have to do. We need to address it. I also have a legal aid for victims of sexual offenses. It has to be a given. It has to be a given. Yes, Brother Calvert, amen. Right? What else did we say we would do? In the area of public awareness, because we want prevention and we want to educate and strengthen our people. In public awareness, we said, our Prime Minister will lead human rights educational campaign in schools. How? Every week, if I were Prime Minister, no amount of duties would stop me from making sure that at least once a week, I go into a school and show my face to those children and be the face and the voice against this vexing problem of sexual violence against them. I want them to see how serious my government is about it. And while, yes, there's a ministry that will be addressing issues like that, I want them to understand how I feel about it. Not just through some statement in the media or some statement in the parliament, but my face talking to them. Because I want them to understand that I do not tolerate it. And I want them to be able to say, the Prime Minister say, our Prime Minister say. Yes, because that's one of the big ways we lead by example. And so we said we would do that. Our Prime Minister, our DRP Prime Minister, will lead human rights educational campaign in schools. Human rights lessons against rape, pedophilia, incest, and such like in schools, via the media and throughout community activities. We also said we would strengthen batterer intervention programs by giving inalienable rights education to reform perpetrators. There are other programs like this around the world, and when I remember I have a photo here, I can't say it too good, but I had gone to Texas and was doing some visits in the United States through partners that I had met and so on in politics. And I was able to meet with people like Jennifer Hawks, who was the former head of a crisis shelter in Waco, Texas. And she talked about the batterer intervention programs because you want to help the victims, but you also want to help perpetrators who can be reformed, to help them to live better and be better and change by the grace of God. But there's another area we mentioned, and this is the last area, and we called it institutional creation and strengthening. Institutional creation and strengthening. What is this all about in dealing with sexual violence? We said We talked about safe houses. Having safe houses according to need, in addition to crisis center, because at that time, you know, we have a crisis center in Citizen Journey. When I was in Parliament, over and over, I used to be asking the minister, when is this crisis center going to be ready? When is it going to be operational, etc.? Because I knew that there was a need for it, and there was a lot of talk about it, but we seem to be moving too slow. But one crisis center is not enough. We need safe houses according to need in areas and capacity, and we have to realize that if we want to stamp out this problem of domestic violence or address it effectively, people have to know that they have some sort of protection. They have somewhere they can go and be safe and escape their perpetrator, for example. We also talked about, so in terms of strengthening institutions or creating institutions that will help, we talked about safe houses in addition to the crisis center. We also talked about the police services, strengthening the police services. How? We said, provide at least 2 vehicles at each police station throughout the state. Why? We had all these problems. We had people complaining. You call the police station, they say they don't have no vehicle. They can't send anybody right now. Come on. How are you going to serve the community if you don't have access to the right to vehicles as you should? It's ridiculous. It's rubbish. You understand? There should never be an excuse. This is people's lives you're dealing with. What is the price and the value we place on that? When we have this kind of foolishness operating, and if you say to me, well, they have vehicles, but it doesn't misuse it, see what the people who misuse them? Because money spent for these things, or we might get enough gifts and we have to spend money to maintain them. Don't have public servants, police, whoever misusing them. Deal with them so that the things can be used for the purposes for which they were really meant. But I know that in some cases, some have honestly said that they didn't have, because it was maybe one and it wasn't there at the time. At least have 2 at each station. What else? Adequate human resources on duty at each station. I have called already. And here, well, it's only me who here, or whatever the case is, police station, late in the night, trying to reach out on behalf of somebody who's in trouble and so on. That's crazy. So we have to have whatever the measures in terms of the police service. We have to have adequate human resources on duty at each station. And also we said training in human rights protection and sensitivity to responding domestic violence and sexual abuse matters, which I know that training was ongoing. I remember when Superintendent Ruth Jacobs was there, I had a good relationship with her. I know that she used to tell me about the different things that they're doing in terms of training and so on and so forth. I know that authorities cannot always take flak for the misbehavior of an officer here or there, but as long as you show us that you are dealing with them when they do mess up, or if they do mess up, that is accountability, and that is very important. And that you're dealing with the complaints of the public when they make them just complaints against, let us say, an officer or two who may not have treated their matter seriously. These things are very important. I see what appears to be a question from Candice. With this said, what can be done through the DRP prior to the next elections? Well, Candice, we are using this forum and others to make people more aware of what we said we could do. If a current government wants to take these suggestions and run with them, praise God. At least it will help people. If we can be used as a voice to advocate more for it, through support given for us to get our messages out for the people themselves to call for the things that they need, praise God again. In terms of getting into office, we exist with the will and the desire. We are not as strong financially and so on as other parties, and generally because of other things that hinder third-party representation, frankly speaking. There are a lot of things. For example, we couldn't get no money, we couldn't get no concessions and so on to bring in paraphernalia during election time as the major parties did. Why? Because the rules generally is that, frankly, there are no laws, there's no law regulating parties at election time and so on. There's none. There's no campaign finance legislation in it, not just here. So there's nothing to say, well, let us cap the amount of money you can have and spend so that everybody could equally have access to the same. In some countries, the state actually provides money to the parties. I'm not necessarily saying we should go that way. I'm just telling you And in our situation, because in the absence of campaign finance legislation and other legislation regulating parties, what simply happens is that by convention or by tradition, the government in power passes a cabinet memo by the Prime Minister that says only the parties represented in the parliament can have access to certain concessions that the court said they could do. So whereas people want to hear what we have to say, whereas people may want to see more of us, etc., we do not necessarily get the same access to support to be able to disseminate our message. We do what we can. And there are a lot of other factors affecting people from coming forward to join us and so on. People who would tell us behind back and in private how impressed they are with our ideas and so on, but for other reasons they are afraid to come forward or whatever the case may be. Someone asked, if you have time, can you please clarify why the recent news reported indicated you believe SCG has no rape culture? Sure, I will address that in a little while. Hello, Robert. Nice to see you. Hope you and your family are doing well. So, the point of the matter is this. I wanted to remind Vincentians. This is what I use this for this live to do today. To remind you all of some of the things that the DRP has said we would do to address the problem of sexual and other violence in the country, in particular sexual violence, and what needs to be done. Because it's one thing to cry out, it's one thing to complain, it's another thing to recommend reforms and changes and things that need to be done to address the problem. Recognizing that we wouldn't be able to fix every last thing. Again, like I said, crime comes from the heart of people, the mind of people, and no government. I won't be so foolish to say that any one government could actually stop crime altogether. Because we don't know when a person sits down in their mind and plans and goes and do what they do. But there are things that the government can do from a legislative standpoint, from a judicial standpoint, from an educational standpoint, policy standpoint, to assist the intention, to assist the people, and to send messages of deterrence, send messages of zero tolerance, and to help people to have power to be able to act, to help themselves and to help others when they know the law and they're aware of penalties and of what they can do in a certain given situation. Now, a question was just asked of me, if I could please clarify why recent news reports indicated that I believe St. Lucia has no rape culture. I made a few posts on my Facebook page recently in which I criticized those who have been saying and claiming that we have a rape culture. Yes. And I did that because I really do believe that we don't. I have researched the expression rape culture. I have researched where it came from, the root of it, and what it means. And I think it is unfair to brand our country as having a rape culture for many reasons. I also do not like the implication in terms of the road that sort of rhetoric would take us down where radical feminism is concerned, which I do not subscribe to. And I make no bones about saying that. I do not subscribe to radical feminism. Now, when they talk about a rape culture, from my research, what I have seen is that that expression was used in the 1970s by radical feminists who frankly hated men. I'm talking about people who openly came out and said they felt that men were a decontamination and that to deal with their problems, they needed to get rid of men. There are persons who literally said things like that. We imbibe and we import certain practice, certain habits, certain terms and expressions from different places, sometimes not even realizing where they came from. And frankly speaking, to do so, from what I have seen, will just make our situation worse. Our problem of rape, of incest, of pedophilia, of buggery, of whatever other sexual crime exists in our country is not a problem of a culture. Vincentians still by and large hate rape. Vincentians still by and large condemn it. Vincentians still by and large don't like it. This is why people hide to do it. This is why they try to do it in secret. This is why they seek to cover up. If it was a culture in the way it is presented, it would mean that it is accepted And it's like the norm, like in certain countries in the East, certain countries where it is religiously accepted that a man could beat his wife. It is religiously accepted that if a woman gets raped, it's her fault and not the man. And that she, for rape and adultery, could get the death penalty, but the man wouldn't get it. That's rape culture. That's those kind of culture. But St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not such a place. Because while we may have a thing being prevalent or a large amount of it, it doesn't mean it is our culture. I resent that and I reject that. It's unfair. There's still many men in this country who hate rape. There's still many men who protect against rape, who will fight against it, who will condemn it. Look at what happened the other day with the guy who was caught. I am not advocating mob rule and that people should take the law into their own hands and say, well, I'm going to beat you to death or whatever the case is. That's not what happened here. Either the guy didn't die. I'm not advocating it, but I'm saying the outrage expressed by that particular community shows that they don't stand for that. We understand the guy was charged and accused, arrested and charged for buggery, including a 10-year-old. Jesus Christ. He buggered. And I understand that child could not do her things like her common entrance exams and so on. I stand corrected, but that's what I heard. For CPEA. And I'm saying when you see that, you know still that we still have, by and large, I don't want it to present it as if it is the majority accepted thing in the country, because it isn't. It isn't, and it's unfair. I have brothers, I have a father. I have friends who are males in this country, and we have to be very careful, because the last thing we want is a divided society in dealing with the problems we have. We don't want any radical feminist views that seem to be taking a general sweep at men. As if men are the terrorists and men are the you know? No, it is some men, it is some boys, it is some, you understand? Again, I asked a question in one of my posts. We had a spate of killings the other day, particular by gun. I didn't hear anything about a killing culture or murder culture. We had and have a serious problem with pre-deal larceny or stealing people's crops, farmers' crops. We have a serious problem with that in this country. You don't hear pre-deal larceny culture or thief culture, but no, you hear rape culture. Why? There are people in this world who have an agenda to put division between the sexes, division between the male and female gender, to destroy the family, and it doesn't help society. It's not convenient for them to use thief culture to bring that division. It's not convenient to even use murder culture. So they come up with rape culture. I was just looking back in my email because I recently sent an article to someone called Rape Culture Myth. And in it, this article that I found I was reading, this particular author was addressing the argument that feminists have used, claiming that America, in this case it was America, has a rape culture. And what I found is that a lot of what was claimed was based on lies. They would bring out statistics from a certain study and say every 1 in 5 woman is raped on a college campus, etc. And people were able to show that those statistics were actually based on lies. The way the study was done and all of that. And that the impression was given that it was such a problem in the whole country, branded the whole country, when in truth and in fact the country had laws against it, when in truth and in fact there were measures being taken against it, and so on and so forth. I want to at least read a very small portion of what I found in that article. If I can find it back, yes. I quote, again, the article is called The Rape Culture Myth, and it's a nice article to read because what I like is that the person takes the argument of the feminist and then shows why these different arguments are not true. I quote, the concept of rape culture goes back to the mid-1970s. Susan Brown Miller's 1975 book, Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape, that's the name of the book, portrayed rape as the ultimate act of male terror against women. Brown Miller argued that rape had played a critical function in patriarchal history as a form of deliberate terrorism. And there's a than a conscious process of intimidation by which all men keep all women in a state of fear. End of quote. You hear nonsense? All men use rape to keep all women in a state of fear. That's not true, and that's unfair. Yet that is a quotation from a book from the 1970s, 1975 by a Susan Brown Miller, where the concept of rape culture first started to emerge. Blaming all men for terrorizing all women. So not only do you blame all men unfairly, but you also put any knowledge of all women, this idea they must have of all men, to fear them as terrorists. That's not right. And I will never accept going to that extreme. I say with caution, some people may just run on the bandwagon and use the expression, being genuinely concerned about the amount of rapes we're hearing about and so on. And I understand. But you cannot just take up things like that and then try now to use that to determine policy in our country. Let us do what we need to do intelligently based on our situation and not being careful not to just blindly follow certain movements, etc. Because men too are being destroyed by false claims in certain situations. Men's lives too in the world, black men and others, are being destroyed by false accusations by women set up to destroy them because maybe they're prospering financially, etc. These things are real realities too, and we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. So I'm grateful for Candace's question because it gives me a chance to explain. Sometimes you use these little blocks on Facebook and you want to keep the words to a certain amount because that's the only way you will get the little color. But I had planned to really address it, Candace, but I've been doing even more research and more findings because a balance needs to be brought and we need all our people on board to help with the institution. Men, women, boys and girls, we need everybody working together. And I believe we can have that. And we don't need the extremist views that would destroy our chances in really addressing our situations. We don't need them at all. I continue with a little piece more of the statement to show you why I say that there were even people who hated men. Well, already you see in the woman's book, she called all men terrorists basically and said that they keep all women in a state of fear. Really, really extreme. Madness. It goes on. Not only did the concept come out in 1970s and he had this book in 1975 with that statement I just quoted, but in the same year, 1975, where the book came out, we're told that there was a film entitled Rape Culture. And I want to tell you who was one of the stars of the film and what did that person go on to say about how they believe about men. I quote, the same year, Cambridge Documentary Films, a small outfit run by activist filmmakers Margaret Lazarus and Rena Wunderlich, released a 35-minute film titled Rape Culture. One of its stars was radical feminist theologian and philosopher Mary Daly, who discussing America's, quote, rapism, quote, phallocentric society, and, quote, unholy trinity of rape, genocide, and war, end of quote. This is Mary Daly, who was described as a radical feminist theologian. She starred in the first film ever called Rape Culture, a 35-minute film in 1975. Listen to what is said of Mary Daly in the same article in the next sentence. In later years, Daly explicitly stated that she is entirely uninterested in men, that she sees males as inherently deadly and destructive. Did you hear that? That she sees males as inherently deadly and destructive in contrast to life-loving women. You and I both know if you have a woman who's destructive in the behavior too, and I wouldn't even say inherently in that sense. And this is what else she explicitly stated, the film star in the film Rape Culture, and that the only hope for the planet's survival lies in its decontamination by means of a drastic reduction of the population of males. Could you imagine that? That the first film ever by the name Rape Culture had a star in it who believed that men in the world contaminates it. And the only hope for survival of the planet is to decontaminate the planet by drastic reduction of the population of males. This is outrageous. I could never stand for these things. The last sentence is instructive too, and this is where I would end. She also chose, this is how extreme the woman was, Candice. She also chose to retire from her post at Boston College rather than admit male students to her classes. End of quote. These and more are the reasons I cannot support such expressions. That's why I like to study things. That's why I like to understand where things come from. That's why I'm always very careful about the things that come into my vocabulary and the things you hear and so on and so forth. I remember as a young senator being interviewed and being invited to meetings on gender-based violence and these kinds of things. And I would always be careful when I speak to show that while we say gender-based violence, let us understand that it is not only women who are the subjects and targets of violence. In fact, you know, a lot more violence happens in this country. I'm not talking about rape. There are other violent crimes against men too. You have man getting burned up around Sion Hill, who killed, take body and try to burn it. You have real grievous things happening to men too. But usually there's not a human cry in a match. Only for women. I understand that we are weaker and more vulnerable, but we must be fair. And we must be careful too, not to let partisan interests. Let me pull one on this one, and let me catch this one with this, and let me catch that one with that. No. Or let me bring down the government with this one. No. Cloud our judgment. Because let me tell you something. PNM in Trinidad fought a campaign against the current government on the point of crime and crime and crime. Rowley and government now and crime mad like crazy in Trinidad still and worse. That's why I always say to use this issue of crime to try to bring on our government, it doesn't work. Because you can never tell when you two are in government and these things happen under you, no matter how good you're doing. Because you just don't control people's minds. They choose to do crime still. You could do your very best. And I believe certain things can help to curb. And by all means, do it. But it really isn't a point upon which be careful. Because then no, if you get in government and you have these things to it, should then the people say, we're moving you because crime is heavy or it has gotten worse? You need to be realistic. At least if you take measures, you can show the people, look what I am doing. But realistic-wise, the Bible tells us these are the last days, and in the last days, perilous times will come because people will become worse in their personality. The scripture says, evil men and seducers wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 13. It also shows people become more selfish, lovers of evil, haters of good. It talks about people having that unnatural affection. You understand? All this deterioration in the personality traits of human beings is what causes the times to be how they are. No government, no one prime minister is actually going to tell people, kill, thief, do this and do that. Be fair. So the point is, my dear people, I love my country. I have always, by the grace of God, sought to serve. And I feel that we really can do better. Better than what this ULP administration is currently doing. I do believe that. But we have to approach doing better by giving practical solutions and convincing people to give the best. Whether it be man, woman, young person, older person, give the best people a chance to join together and work to do better. That is what we need. No one person knows everything. And we must never behave as if we cannot, use the expertise and the wisdom of others, regardless of political sides. Yes, Candice, thank you. And I agree with you. There are people, my contemporaries. I remember as a 1998 Island Scholar. 1 year after me, 1999, Sokoto Caesar became an Island Scholar. In those days, we were four Island Scholars only. Sokoto rose through the ranks in the ULP, became a senator. He was I believe he was a Crown Counsel prosecutor. I remember him working on a case where I was working at tourism, and we had, unfortunately, a family, a tourist family, who was raped, who was affected in the Super Mountain. I remember him working on that matter. I remember going to court as a member of the Ministry of Tourism, supporting his family. He became a senator, then he got a ministerial portfolio after winning his seat, and he won again as well. Guys like Sokoto do have things to offer. Guys like, there are a lot of people in this country and outside of the country. That's another thing I realized when I traveled. There have been tensions abroad who have served in different capacities in different countries. They have expertise. They have other ways of doing things that they can help us to learn of and from. One of the things we said in our manifesto on the public sector reform, we talked about establishing an innovation panel. And we said this panel will be made up of government ministers, retired professionals, community developers, and other such persons from various sectors of society who wish to contribute continually to problem solving and solutions offering for the challenges our nation faces as time goes by. We sit down in cabinet. We don't know everything. Even though you become a government, you need constant. You see, I hear Mia Motley in Barbados who just won saying things like this in her swearing in. I have this in my manifesto. I call it an innovation panel. She talked about how she would use select committee system from Parliament to involve people because look, she has all 30 seats now, and there's no formal opposition. She said, I will use these processes to engage the public. We have in our manifesto from 2015, establish an innovation panel. I want to read to you again. This panel will be made up of government ministers, retired professionals, community developers, and other such persons from various sectors of society who wish to contribute continually to problem solving and solutions offering for the challenges our nation faces as time goes by. This body, this innovation panel, will research, discover, and propose to cabinet every 3 months. You listening to me? This innovation panel body will research, discover, and propose to cabinet every 3 months papers with solutions to address the various challenges facing the country, whether it be in tax reform, crime solving, or education. It is one of our unique ways of guaranteeing our watch phrase, people's participatory power, and ensuring that our country is never lacking in research, development, and innovations. You see? Because we need each other. We need our retirees. We need our diaspora folks. I know diaspora folks who work in airport development in America. I know diaspora folks who have worked in inventing medical things. I remember there was a young lady who died the other day, Ayana. She had kidney issues. I remember visiting the States in 2014, and I met a really nice Vincentian doctor who practices in Texas. And he explained to me efforts he made in years gone by, having gone to school with a former minister of health here. Efforts he made not only to send staff members he had to train health professionals here in properly administering an alternative way of dealing with dialysis that is cheaper, kidney dialysis. Not only was he willing to send his staff to help with training, but he also had a colleague in Jamaica who had found out how to make the relevant fluid that is needed in that form of dialysis through the stomach, so that we didn't have to keep spending all this money to buy it from Barbados. And I spoke to that kidney patient who today is in her grave. And she admitted to me, yes, Ms. Baptiste, I know of the method they're talking about, but one of the challenges we have in the hospital is, one, if you don't clean the area properly and so on, it's susceptible to a lot of infection. And secondly, the fluid is expensive and they normally have to buy it from Barbados. But we have Vincentians abroad who is willing to help with those things. And what were they told when they made their recommendation? Nobody bothered with them. So we have expertise out there of people who would willingly, even willingly give up the coal and come home and settle to be able to serve and contribute in significant ways, bringing all that they've learned to give back to their homeland. But so much of parties and politics and problems and division and, well, you ain't connected to me and your father wasn't on my side and this, that, and so on, keeping people out. And we said no. We said we will do differently with an innovation panel because our interest is in people and country, truly in people and country. So, my dear people, we believe, I just read this portion for you. Our country's best and greatest resources is our people. And we have many trained and competent professionals at home and abroad, young graduates and even retirees who have great contributions to make to our development. And this is where we said one of the ways in which we would get them involved is through that innovation panel. We talked about how we will recruit the best and brightest from among our people and get the job done in the interest of all. Public servants will be rightfully placed where they can do their jobs based on their qualifications, continually being sure to provide opportunities for them for ongoing training. This will require early assessment of our human resources pool from the outset of taking government. We even had a 100 days plan. What we would do in the first 100 days. Well, Vincentians, I think I've spoken enough in one live. It's more than an hour and a half. The fact of the matter is, let it not be said that the DRP did not put forward our proposals. And remember, we were the only party that said we would change the age of consent. You only want to write it on paper too. Because we're serious about it. We spoke of it on our platforms and where we were able to broadcast. It was using one of our ads coming on close to the elections. If you want to support the DRP or support getting DRP type candidates into office, however that becomes a reality, whether through coalition or what, contact us and talk to us. We know that everything depends on the people. We know that there's the people who must want it. We understand the workings. And we have no gripe if people choose otherwise, because that is their freedom and we respect it. But we really believe what we believe, and that is why we have a voice still, regardless of how small and so on and so forth we are. So if you want to contact us, you know how to reach me. 528-1015 is my number. I am on Facebook. Don't expect extremism from me at all. Don't expect views that are going to fight and destroy the family. Don't expect the supporting of immorality. And I'm not talking about making my party or government a church. Many people accuse me wrongfully of a lot of things. And sometimes because some people don't listen to me myself, they go along with the propaganda. But don't worry about those talks. You see my work over the years. I have worked in the interest of all. The issue of religious affiliation has never interfered with me serving the people. Nobody in Poliard is a Tuesday 7 Adventist like me, yet they have pipe water because of an disabilities and our activism. And all the people we built houses for, and we helped to get back this and get school supplies and so on, nobody shares a religious affiliation with me. So all this nonsense about, oh, she could make a good prime minister, she could make a good politician, but she needs to separate her religion. That's foolishness, and you all know better than that. You can't stop a prime minister or a minister of government or anybody from quoting a religious text or from expressing their religious convictions. The only thing we are forbidden from doing is from using the law to enforce a particular religion or to prohibit any particular religion. Yes, Candice, that's right. I remember, and congratulations on that bursary effort because children are benefiting. I remember I think it was the first year when you did it, one of the children who submitted her story about her grandmother, she won. And her mother was so happy because they was in such dire straits. That child belonged to the Bel Air government school, and she was able to get that bursary to go to school. And that was like a miracle in itself. And so when I saw the bursary program, I encouraged the mother to let the child write because I saw it as an opportunity for them to get help that they needed. So congrats to you, Candice, and all the other Vincentian patriots in the diaspora who are making efforts like these. I say all of these things to say the only thing when it comes to religion that no government must do, no politician must do, no legislator must do, is likened unto what is written into the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It says, and I quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, so law to establish religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And it goes on to say, nor abridging the freedom of speech, etc. That's the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution. It prohibits the legislature. In America, it is Congress. It's in Canadian, it is Parliament. It prohibits the legislature from passing a law that establishes one religion as the state religion, which automatically makes the practice of any other religion but that religion a crime or wrong thing to do. And it says you should not pass any law to prohibit any religion. Why? Because everybody under our Constitution, Section 9, freedom of conscience, has the freedom to believe, to practice their religion, whether in private or public, to propagate their religion, to change their religion. All of that is in our Constitution. And that does not exclude the politician. Politicians too have freedom to practice their religion. Politicians too have freedom to go in Parliament and pray, have freedom to go in Parliament and read a scripture if they want to read a scripture, have freedom to go in Parliament and say Merry Christmas or Happy Easter or don't say it at all. Why is it that people try to use this against Anesia Baptiste when it's been going on for years by all the politicians? We've had upstanding, well-known, religious politicians in Parliament right through, Seventh-day Adventists, Anglican, Methodist, Catholic. But alas, the enthusiast Seventh-day Adventist comes along and some wants to use that propaganda. But all I ask you, if you don't believe me for my word's sake, I say like Jesus Christ, believe me for my work's sake. And I have been consistent through the years. I am no outcome. People like to bandy about that term. That is really nonsense, because once the person is qualified and they could do the job, they should get a fair opportunity. People may not choose them, but they should get a fair opportunity. This nonsense about no come is rubbish, but I could say I'm no come. And even when I had just come, my work exceeded that of many in comparison in a short space of time. And unfortunately, for those same arguments, I was pushed out of a major party in this country. But I never let it keep me down. I continue to do my work. I believe what I believe. I pressed on, though small, though weak, though, you know, having to grow and learn and things like that. But no problem. Such is life. But I will not stop believing in the principles that I believe in, because I honestly know that they can work and they can help. So may God bless you, Vincentian. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Sonia. I believe that. And I want to say it pays all now. Because I meet people all the time. I meet people all the time who tell me, you remember, sometimes I don't even remember, you remember you had given my son so-and-so, you remember you had done so-and-so. I remember children sending me message, pray for me, I'm going to do CPEA, because they just see me on TV all the time. You understand? People meet me in the supermarket and say, let me introduce you to my daughter. She's shy, but she's been watching me on TV since 2009. People die, and their family call me. You have to come to this funeral. It was because of you, Mommy had a house. These are the things that last, Sonia. So even without a position yet, according to God's will and the people's will, I am satisfied with the work that I have been doing, and I will continue to do it by the grace of God. Honestly, genuinely, and fairly. Don't look for extremism from Anesia Baptiste. Don't look for any extreme positions because I'm trying to get rid of this government or that government. I believe the way to beat Ralph is to be better than Ralph. You hear me? I always say, in order to beat Ralph, you have to be better than Ralph. Don't do like him or try to do back what he did, because then you're not different. Be better. and win over the people by your ideas. And that is what can happen if it is truly organized. Also, sometimes things have to come to a head. People have to face a certain kind of dire situation for them to suddenly and overwhelmingly make the transformation. But if people do not believe that there's a genuine alternative that can work, I once heard it say that a former politician in this country said, if better can be done, worse will have to continue. That's a really unfortunate statement. But the truth is, it sometimes happens. I don't want that. I know better could be done. I want better to be done. And by the grace of God, I will lend my services where better can be done. However God allows it to come to be in this country. But I will not contribute to a worsened situation. I will not contribute to hypocrisy. I will not contribute to extremism. I will not contribute to saying one thing against my opponent, but people on my team doing the same thing. I will not be a part of that by the grace of God. May God bless you. Please go over this video. Our manifesto, I put the actual pages about what we will do to deal with sexual violence. I actually put the pages as pictures in an album on our DRP page. You can go there, you can find it there, and you can see what we said we would do. God bless you. Until we talk again, amen. Bye-bye.